This video is to help you with number 8 on CR Helper 31. And you can tell I'm being quite lazy. All I did was change a couple of numbers. I'm so sorry, but it's the best I can do on a Wednesday evening. So for number 8, it says the histogram shows responses from a survey of 32 students. So we know there's a total of 32 students who responded. And it says, how many hours did you study before the test? Frequency means the number of students who responded to that amount, and along the bottom, number of hours. So this must be 1, this must be 3, that must be 5, that must be 7. So before I even do this problem, I want to decipher what the graph means. So it means that one student says they studied 0 hours. Okay? It tells me that 6 students studied 1 hour. So one student, oops, sorry, I just want to organize my information here. So one student studied 0 hours. Okay, let's hope that one knew all the material. They didn't even try to prepare for the test. 6 students said they studied 1 hour. All right. How many students said they studied 2 hours? All right, 4 students. 4 students said they studied 2 hours. Before I can worry about trying to answer the question, I at least have to understand what the graph means. 8 students studied 3 hours. Those kids are ready for that test. 8 students studied 3 hours. Okay, how many students studied 4 hours? 7. 7 students studied 4 hours. All right, so we know 8 students studied for 3 hours. We just figured out that 7 students studied for 4 hours. And how many students studied 5 hours? 6 students studied for 5 hours. All right, it says they surveyed 32 students, so let's hope when we add up all these numbers, we come up with 32 students. 1 and 6 is 7, and 4 more is 11, and 8 more is 19, and 7 more is 26, and 6 more is 32. Okay, so 32 students total were surveyed. How many students studied less than 3 hours? So we're just looking for the number of students that studied less than 3 hours. So here, from here on, represents all the students that studied 3 hours or more. So if we're talking about the students who studied less than 3 hours, we're talking about those students who studied 0 hours, 1 hour, or 2 hours. All right, so how many students studied less than 3 hours? Well, 1 student studied only 0 hours. I just find that funny. I don't know why. 6 students studied for 1 hour. 4 students studied for 2 hours. So how many students studied less than 3 hours? 11. 11 students studied for less than 3 hours. All right. Then it says, what percent of students studied for 2 hours? Here's our number of students who studied for 2 hours, but they're asking what percent. All right, we could do part over total, lots of ways to go about this, equals percent over 100. Part out of total. What percent of students studied for 2 hours? That means how many studied for 2 hours out of the total students surveyed? Well, 4 students studied for 2 hours out of a total of 32 students surveyed. And they want to know what percent is that out of 100. Well, I'm going to simplify this. I don't know if it'll help me to simplify. But 4 out of 32 becomes 4 divided by 4. 4 goes into 4 once. 4 goes into 32 8 times. This isn't going to work out nicely, but So 1/8 equals what out of 100? So I have to figure out 8 times what is 100. So I'm going to do 100 divided by 8. I'm going to end up rounding this problem. I just made up these numbers here, so yours may have worked out nicely. I don't know. So if I'm going to figure out a percentage, 8 times what is 100? 8 goes into 10 once. 8 goes into 20 twice. Oh, good. Right? 8 goes into 45 times. Oh, okay. So 8 times 12.5 gets me to 100. I didn't expect it to work out so quickly. Let's hope I didn't make a mistake. If I'm going to multiply the 12.5 in the denominator, I need to multiply 12.5 in the numerator. 1 times 12.5 is 12.5%. So if you know 4 out of every 32 kids, or 1 out of every 8 kids studied for 2 hours, that means 12.5 out of every 100 will study for 2 hours. Just want to make sure it makes sense. 4 out of 32 would get me to like 8 out of 64. If I multiply top and bottom by 3, that would be like 12 out of 3 times 32 would be like 96. Yeah, so about 12 out of every 96 students, or 12 and a half out of every 100 students. That seems reasonable to me. All right, hopefully that helps. That's the last one. Have a good night, Miss Haley.